The council chamber stretched across half a kilometer of polished crystal floor. 12 species sat in their designated sections, representatives of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. At the center platform stood High Chancellor In, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture of supreme confidence. They had ruled the Galactic Empire for 3,000 years. Nothing threatened their power. Until Ambassador stumbled through the entrance. This carapace showed deep scorch marks. 2 of his 6 legs dragged uselessly behind him. His compound eyes, normally bright green, had faded to a sickly yellow. The chamber fell silent as he limped toward the speaking platform. "Honored Council," his voice cracked through the translation matrix. "I bring urgent warning from Sector 7 Beta." In's face plates shifted into what passed for a smile among his kind. "Ambassador, we received reports your expedition was lost. Clearly, those reports were exaggerated." "The expedition was not lost," said. "It was destroyed. I am the only survivor of a crew of 47. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. They were known as Master Explorers. Losing an entire expedition was nearly unheard of. "What destroyed your expedition?" asked Council Member S, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's light. "Pirates, a stellar anomaly." "Humans," said. The chamber erupted in clicks, chirps, and translated laughter. In held up one hand for silence. "Humans," the Chancellor's voice dripped with amusement. "You mean the primitives from the Death World, the ones who only achieved faster-than-light travel 20 cycles ago?" "Yes," said, "those humans." More laughter. Waited until it died down, his body trembling with exhaustion or rage or both. "I know how this sounds," he continued. "But you must listen. These creatures are unlike anything we have encountered. They come from a world that has tried to kill them since they first evolved. Their planet has extreme weather, deadly predators, diseases that would wipe out most species. Yet they survived. More than survived. They conquered their world." "Many species conquer there," In said, examining his claws with apparent disinterest. "It is hardly remarkable." "Their world fought back harder than most," insisted. "And it made them different, dangerous. We approached their outer system with peaceful intentions. We wanted to study them to understand their rapid technological development. We maintained distance. We observed their communications, their settlements on 3 planets and 7 moons. We thought we were careful." "But," prompted S. "They detected us on the 2nd day," said. "Our ships are equipped with the finest stealth technology in the galaxy. We were 15 light minutes from their nearest outpost. They should not have seen us, but they did, and they did not hail us or welcome us. They mobilized." "Mobilized," In leaned forward, "an entire species." "Every settlement went on alert within 6 hours," said. "Military ships, civilian vessels, even their mining craft, all armed, all coordinated. They sent a message demanding we identify ourselves and state our intentions. When we did not respond immediately, they assumed hostile intent." "Foolish," muttered one of the council members. "Perhaps," said, "or perhaps wise, because when we finally did respond with peaceful greetings, they did not fully believe us. They approached with weapons powered. They scanned our ships with methods so crude they damaged our sensor arrays. And they asked questions, so many questions, about our technology, our government, our military capabilities, our territorial claims." "Standard diplomatic queries," In said. "No," shook his head. "Not diplomatic, tactical. They were assessing threats, measuring our strength, looking for weaknesses, all while maintaining what they called friendly relations." "Did they attack you?" S asked. "Not directly," said. "But 3 of our crew requested permission to visit their nearest station. Cultural exchange, they said. I approved it. The humans welcomed them, showed them their facilities, their technology, and my crew members started asking questions the humans did not like. Questions about their defensive capabilities, about their response times, about their population centers." His voice dropped lower. "The humans arrested them, called them spies. They were polite about it, apologetic even, but they took my people into custody and would not release them. They said evidence suggested intelligence-gathering operations. They were right, of course. My crew was gathering intelligence, but we had never encountered a species that caught us so quickly." "What happened then?" In asked, his amusement fading. "I demanded their release, made threats. The humans remained polite but firm, so I attempted a rescue operation. We had 44 crew members against a station of perhaps 300 humans. We had superior technology, better weapons, stronger ships. It should have been simple." The chamber waited. They destroyed 3 of our ships in the first 10 minutes, said quietly. Not with advanced weapons, with tactics we did not expect. They used their stations mining lasers reconfigured in seconds. They detonated cargo containers full of refined metals, creating debris fields that crippled our targeting systems. They launched unarmed ships directly at us, piloted by volunteers, forcing us to waste ammunition on targets that contained no actual threat. And while we tried to sort through the chaos, their few military craft hit us with precision strikes. Impossible, In said. Our technology is centuries beyond theirs. Technology means nothing if you cannot hit your target, said. They move like no species I have encountered, erratic, unpredictable. Their pilots take risks that should be suicidal, but somehow they survive. When we disabled one of their ships, the pilot did not surrender. He crashed his vessel into our communications array. Deliberately, the humans call it ramming. Barbaric, someone muttered. Effective, corrected. With our communications damaged, our coordination suffered. The humans pressed their advantage. They did not try to destroy us outright. They disabled our engines, our weapons, our life support systems. They wanted us helpless, not dead. When they boarded, they moved through our ships like they had designed them. They knew exactly where to go, what to target. Later, I realized they had studied our technology during the earlier cultural exchange. They learned faster than should be possible. Pulled out a data crystal and placed it on the platform. Holographic images sprang to life, showing human history, their wars, their weapons development. This is their past, he said. In the last 400 cycles, they have fought over 50 major conflicts against themselves. They have developed thousands of ways to kill. They have split atoms for weapons. They have engineered diseases. They have created machines whose only purpose is destruction. And they have survived all of it. Every war makes them stronger, teaches them new lessons. They fight among themselves, S asked. Then they are divided. They were divided, said. But the moment my expedition appeared, the moment they detected an outside threat, their divisions disappeared. Humans have a saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We became their unifying threat. Every human faction, every nation, every settlement coordinated their response against us. It happened in hours. Instead, all 4 arms spread wide. Ambassador, you come before this council with wild claims based on one failed expedition. You ask us to fear a species that barely controls their own system. A species whose greatest achievement is reaching their nearest planet. You expect us to believe they pose a threat to the Galactic Empire. Yes, said simply. The chamber erupted in laughter again, and let it continue for a moment before raising his hand. Your warning is noted, the Chancellor said, his voice thick with mockery. The Council will take your concerns under advisement. In the meantime, we suggest you spend more time preparing your expeditions and less time jumping at shadows. You are dismissed. You do not understand, pleaded. I have studied their broadcasts, their literature, their culture. They do not think like us. When threatened, they do not calculate odds or seek diplomatic solutions first. They assume the worst and prepare for it. They have a word for it, paranoia, and it keeps them alive. Enough, In said firmly. The Council has spoken. Your expedition failed because of poor planning, not because humans pose any real danger. We will continue our expansion plans as scheduled. If human space falls in our path, they will submit like all others. This discussion is over. Gathered his data crystal with shaking limbs. He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives, seeing only closed minds and comfortable arrogance. I have given my warning, he said quietly. When they come, and they will come, remember that I tried to make you understand. Humans do not conquer because they are strong. They survive because they refuse to quit, and that makes them the most dangerous species you will ever face. He turned and limped toward the exit. Behind him, the council members returned to their regular business, already forgetting the mad ambassador and his ridiculous warnings about primitive humans. Only one council member watched leave with thoughtful eyes, but even that one said nothing. The warning had been given, and completely ignored. 6 months later, the Empire would begin its expansion toward human space. By then, the colony world of New Haven orbited a yellow star much like Earth's sun. 50,000 humans called it home, spread across 3 continents. They had been there for 12 years, building farms, mining operations, and a small spaceport. Governor Henderson took pride in what they had accomplished. A peaceful settlement on a peaceful world. That peace ended when the fleet arrived. Captain Mitchell was in her office at the Colonial Defense Station when the alerts started screaming. She ran to the command center, still pulling on her uniform jacket. Commander Greg Palmer was already at his station, his face pale. "Report," said. 12 ships just dropped out of slip space at the edge of the system, Greg said. "Big ones, they are not responding to our hails." Studied the tactical display. The ships were massive, each one larger than anything humanity had built. Their formation was perfect, military precise. This was not a trade delegation. "Get Governor Henderson on the line," she said, "and wake up everyone, I mean everyone." Within minutes, the entire colony went on alert. Off-duty soldiers rushed to their posts. Civilian ships powered up their engines. Mining crews started moving equipment away from the spaceport. Families gathered their emergency supplies. They had drilled for this scenario dozens of times, hoping they would never need it. Governor Henderson appeared on screen, his gray hair uncombed. "Captain, what are we looking at?" "Unknown fleet, Governor. Design according to our databases. They are not talking to us." "Keep trying to establish communication," said. "I will be at the command center in 10 minutes." But before he arrived, the fleet sent their first message. Admiral Axe appeared on every screen in the colony, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of dominance. "Humans of New Haven," his translated voice boomed. "I am Admiral Axe of the Galactic Empire. This system now falls under Imperial jurisdiction. You will submit to Imperial authority within the next 6 hours. Resistance will not be tolerated. Compliance will be rewarded. Disobedience will be punished. These are your only options." The transmission ended. Looked at Greg. 6 hours to surrender our entire colony. That is what he said. Governor Henderson burst into the command center, still buttoning his shirt. "Did I just hear what I think I heard?" "Yes, sir," said. "They want our surrender in 6 hours." Slammed his fist on the nearest console. "This is our home. We have legal claim to this system under Terran colonial charter. We have not threatened anyone. Who do they think they are?" "The Galactic Empire, apparently," Greg said quietly. "Sir, those ships could level our settlements from orbit. We have 3 patrol craft and some mining vessels. We cannot fight them." "We cannot just give up our colony," said. "Hail them again. I want to negotiate." It took 20 minutes to get Admiral Axe back on screen. The looked annoyed at the delay. "Governor Henderson, I presume." "Yes, Admiral. I need to discuss your demands. 6 hours is not enough time to make such a decision. I need to consult with Earth, with our people, with our legal council. Surely the Galactic Empire can be reasonable about this." Axe's face plates shifted. "Reasonable? You speak to me of reasonable. The Empire has been reasonable. We have given you 6 hours when we could simply take your world by force. We have offered you a place in the Empire when we could have simply eliminated you. This is the Empire's generosity." "Generosity?" His voice hardened. "You show up unannounced, make demands, and call it generous. That is not how diplomacy works, Admiral." "It is how the Empire works," Axe said. "You have 5 hours and 37 minutes remaining. Use them wisely." The transmission ended again. "Looked at, sir. We need to make preparations. Whatever your decision, we need to be ready." "Ready for what? We cannot fight 12 warships." "No," agreed. "But we can make them pay for every meter if they try to take us by force, and we can buy time for Earth to respond." Stared at the tactical display for a long moment. "Earth is 3 weeks away at best speed." "Then we need to hold for 3 weeks," said. "That is impossible." "Probably," agreed. "But humans have done impossible things before." Closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had hardened there. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them what is happening. Tell them to send everything they have. And Captain Mitchell, you have command of our defense. Do what you need to do." Saluted, "Yes, sir." The next 5 hours passed in a blur of activity. Every civilian with any military training reported for duty. Mining ships were fitted with whatever weapons the colony could scrape together. Fusion cutters, rail guns meant for asteroid work, even chemical explosive charges. The 3 patrol craft, tiny compared to the warships, took up positions around the colony's orbital stations. Knew it would not be enough, but she also knew something that Admiral Axe did not understand yet. Humans did not surrender easily. When the 6 hours ended, Henderson sent one final message to the fleet. "Admiral Axe, this is Governor Henderson. We reject your demands. New Haven is a sovereign human colony. We will not submit to your empire. If you want our world, you will have to take it." and I promise you we will make you regret trying. Axe appeared on screen again, his face plates arranged in an expression that might have been surprise. You refuse, you understand what this means. We understand perfectly, said, do you? Axe cut the transmission. 2 minutes later, a cruiser fired a warning shot. The plasma beam struck an uninhabited mountain range 50 kilometers from the nearest settlement. The explosion could be seen from orbit. When the dust cleared, the mountain was gone. Axe's voice broadcast across all channels. That was a demonstration. The next shot will hit your capital city unless you surrender immediately. Did not wait for order. She activated the colony's defense plan. Every mining operation in the asteroid belt received the same signal. Detonate. Thousands of carefully placed explosive charges went off simultaneously, sending billions of tons of rock and metal flying in every direction. The resulting debris field made navigation through the inner system nearly impossible. Axe's fleet began moving forward anyway, confident their shields could handle debris. That was their second mistake. Their first was threatening humans. Patrol craft launched from hidden positions. They came in fast and low, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their approach. They detected them too late. The first patrol craft, commanded by Lieutenant Sophie Grant, fired every missile it carried at the nearest cruiser. Most exploded harmlessly against shields. But 2 got through, targeting the cruiser's sensor arrays with precision that suggested detailed knowledge of ship design. The cruiser went blind. And in that moment of blindness, Greg Palmer brought his patrol craft screaming in from the opposite direction, targeting the now exposed communications equipment. The returned fire, swatting at the tiny human ships like annoyed giants. But the humans did not stay still long enough to be hit. They attacked and retreated, always moving, always unpredictable. Meanwhile, the armed mining vessels launched their own attack. They did not target the warships directly. Instead, they released thousands of metal containers, each one programmed to fly toward the fleet and then explode. Most contained nothing but scrap metal, but a few contained genuine explosives. They could not tell the difference until detonation. Their point defense systems went into overdrive, destroying target after target. But there were too many. Some got through. Small explosions blossomed across shields, each one draining a little more power. Axe realized this was not going to be the quick conquest he expected. All ships, destroy the mining vessels, show these primitives the cost of defiance. But the mining vessels scattered in every direction. Some fled toward the outer system. Others dove into the asteroid field. A few deliberately crashed into asteroids, sending more debris into space. And while the fleet tried to hunt down scattered civilian ships, struck at their flagship. Her patrol craft came up from beneath the ecliptic plane where sensors were weakest. She had one chance, one shot. She had loaded her ship with everything explosive the colony possessed. If she missed, she died for nothing. She did not miss. The explosives detonated against the flagship's engine section. The shields held mostly, but the force of the blast sent the massive ship tumbling. For 3 minutes, Axe's flagship spun uncontrolled through space while its crew fought to regain stability. That was when Earth's response fleet arrived. Admiral Brooks brought 20 ships through slip space in a thunderous display of light and energy. They were not larger than the vessels. They were not more advanced. But they were crewed by humans who had just heard that someone threatened their colony. His voice broadcast to both fleets. Vessels, this is Admiral Brooks of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. If you fire another shot, we will interpret it as an act of war. Axe had finally stabilized his flagship. He stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How had they arrived so fast? Earth was 3 weeks away. Admiral Brooks, you cannot have received word of our arrival yet. It is impossible for you to be here. Smiled coldly. We received New Haven's alert 90 minutes after you arrived. Our fleet was already in slip space for exercises. We just changed course. Lucky timing, wouldn't you say? It was a lie. The Earth fleet had been scrambled the moment New Haven sent their distress call, pushing their engines beyond safe limits to get here in time. But Axe did not need to know that. This is Imperial space now, Axe said. You have no authority here. This is human space, replied. We are claiming authority by the same method you did. We are here and we are armed. The difference is this is our colony. Are you really willing to start a war over it? Axe looked at his tactical display. His fleet was damaged, disorganized, and now outnumbered. The humans had hurt him with nothing but patrol craft and mining ships. What would they do with a proper fleet? This is not over, Axe said. The Empire does not forget challenges to its authority. Neither do humans, said. Withdraw now or find out what we do to people who threaten our colonies. The fleet retreated. It took 3 hours for them to regroup and jump to slip space. During that time, no one on either side fired a shot, but everyone knew the temporary peace would not last. When they were gone, face appeared on screen. Captain Mitchell, your report. We held them, sir. No casualties among our people. Some damage to mining equipment and one patrol craft needs repairs. But we held them. You did more than hold them, said. You bloodied the nose of the Galactic Empire. They will not forget that. Neither will we. Looked out at the stars where they had been. Sir, this is going to get worse, is it not? His expression was grim. Much worse. You just started a war, Captain, and the Empire has no idea what they have gotten themselves into. Be far too late to heed words. 8 months after New Haven, the war had spread across 3 star systems. Admiral Brooks stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical display with tired eyes. Red markers showed positions. Blue markers showed human forces. There were far more red than blue. Another fleet just arrived in the system, Lieutenant Sophie Grant reported from her station. She had earned a promotion after New Haven and now served as tactical officer. Reinforcements. Looks like 15 capital ships and twice that many support vessels. Nodded slowly. They keep throwing more ships at us, expecting quantity to overcome quality. They still do not understand who they are fighting. Sir, we are outnumbered 5-1 across all fronts, Sophie said quietly. At some point, quantity does matter. Maybe, said, but not today. Show me their formation. The display zoomed in on the fleet. They were arranged in their standard pattern, a configuration perfected over thousands of years. It was efficient, defensive, and completely predictable. That was the problem. Marshal or commanded the military now. Admiral Axe had been demoted after his failure at New Haven, sent to command supply lines far from the fighting, or was smarter, more cautious. He studied human tactics, tried to predict their moves, but even he could not fully grasp how humans thought about warfare. On his flagship or reviewed reports from the front lines, every engagement told the same story. The humans were outnumbered, but they kept winning. They used tactics they had never encountered, feints within feints, attacks from impossible angles, ships that appeared to flee suddenly turning and attacking, weapons that should not work being used in ways their designers never intended. Ambassador had warned him. The now served as an advisor, brought in because he was the only one who had actually fought humans and survived, or had listened to his advice more than the council had. But listening was not the same as understanding. They fight like their planet taught them, had explained. Earth is a death world. Every predator, every storm, every disease was trying to kill them, so they learned to fight dirty. They learned that survival matters more than honor. They learned that a clever trap beats superior strength. Or had nodded, thinking he understood. He had been wrong. The humans ambushed his fleet at the 3rd planet of the system, or had expected an attack near the outer system, where human forces had been gathering. Instead, they hit him close to the planet, using the gravity well to their advantage. Human ships came screaming out of the atmosphere itself, something pilots would never risk. The atmospheric friction damaged their hulls, but they did not care. They were already shooting before Or's fleet could respond. Sophie Grant led the attack. Her squadron of 8 ships targeted the flagship's shield generators with coordinated precision. Each ship fired at a different generator, timing their shots to hit simultaneously. The shields collapsed for 3 seconds. 3 seconds was all Sophie needed. Her missiles struck the flagship's primary weapons array. The explosion was not enough to destroy the ship, but it crippled its offensive capability. In a single exchange, Or's most powerful vessel became a liability. But Sophie was not done. Instead of retreating, she led her squadron directly through the formation, weaving between capital ships at speeds that made Or's pilots hesitate. The human ships were small enough to fit in the gaps between larger vessels. They used the ships themselves as cover, making it impossible for Or's forces to fire without risking friendly fire. It was chaos, beautiful, terrifying chaos. Or tried to restore order, but the humans kept him off balance. Just as his fleet began to reorganize, civilian freighters appeared from behind the planet's moon. They were loaded with refined metals from the colony's mining operations. The freighters accelerated to ramming speed and flew directly at his formation. "Destroy those ships," or ordered. His point defense systems opened fire, destroying freighter after freighter. But 3 got through. They crashed into cruisers with devastating force. The impacts disabled 2 ships and severely damaged a third. And those freighters had been unmanned, remote-controlled. The humans had sacrificed valuable cargo vessels without losing a single life. While Ord dealt with the freighters, Brooks arrived with the main fleet. They dropped out of slip space behind the formation, having calculated the jump coordinates with insane precision. Most species left generous margins for error when jumping near planets. Humans apparently did not believe in generous margins. The battle turned from ambush to slaughter. Ships tried to regroup, but human vessels hit them from 3 directions at once. Every time Ord adapted to one threat, another appeared. His formations kept collapsing. His crews grew panicked. After 6 hours, Ord ordered a retreat. He had lost 9 ships. The humans lost 2. Back at high command, Ord studied recordings of the battle. He watched human ships perform maneuvers that should have torn them apart from the G-forces alone. He watched their pilots take risks that violated every principle of space combat. He watched them win through sheer audacity. "How do their crews survive those accelerations?" he asked. "They do not always," they said. "But humans accept casualties if victory requires them, and their crews train for high-G combat. Their bodies are built for a heavy-gravity world. They can withstand forces that would kill most of us." Or pulled up human casualty reports. The numbers were small compared to losses, but they existed. Humans died in these battles, pilots who pushed their ships too hard, crews caught in explosions, soldiers hit by weapons fire, and yet the humans kept fighting with the same intensity. "They should be demoralized," Ord said. "Every species slows down when they take casualties, becomes more cautious. The humans fight harder." "Yes," agreed, "because they do not see deaths as a reason to quit. They see them as reasons to win. Each casualty makes the survivors more determined." "That is insane. That is humanity." Or began studying human military history. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humans had been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. They had refined warfare into an art form. They had thousands of years of tactical innovation, all gained from fighting each other in increasingly destructive conflicts. They had fought many wars, but they had fought them against weaker species. They had centuries of winning easily. Humans had centuries of fighting equals or superiors and finding ways to win anyway. One historical event caught Ord's attention. A human nation called Britain had fought against another called France for over 100 years. Both sides had similar technology and resources. The war had gone back and forth, with neither side able to achieve decisive victory. That kind of prolonged, innovative conflict was unheard of in history. And that was just one war. Humans had fought hundreds like it. "They are bred for this," Ord said too. "War is in their nature." "No," corrected. "Survival is in their nature. War is just one tool they use, but it is a tool they have mastered." Meanwhile, Sophie Grant's career continued its unlikely rise. After the system victory, she was given command of a captured cruiser. The ship had been disabled during an earlier battle and boarded by human marines. Instead of destroying it, the humans had towed it back to their shipyards. 3 weeks later, Sophie took that same cruiser into battle against its former owners. Human engineers had torn apart the ship and rebuilt it. They kept the basic structure but modified everything else. The weapons were reconfigured for human tactics. The engines were pushed beyond their design specifications. The shield generators were rewired to focus power where humans needed it, not where doctrine said it should go. The modified cruiser should not have worked. By all engineering principles, the changes should have made it less effective, but humans did not always follow engineering principles. Sophie took her new command to the frontier, where forces were pushing toward another human colony. She arrived with 5 escorts and found herself facing a fleet of 20 vessels. They recognized their own ship design and hesitated, confused. That moment of confusion was fatal. Sophie knew every weakness of cruisers because she was flying one. She knew the blind spots in their sensors. She knew the gaps in their shield coverage. She knew the timing of their targeting systems, and she exploited all of it. Her attack was surgical. She disabled the command ship first, cutting off their coordination. Then she systematically crippled their weapons ships, leaving their support vessels helpless. When the battle ended, Sophie had captured 4 ships intact and driven off the rest. The captured ships were sent back to human shipyards. Within a month, human crews would be flying them against their former owners. Or watched these developments with growing horror. The humans were not just fighting the Empire, they were learning from every encounter. Every captured ship gave them new technology. Every battle taught them new tactics. The longer the war continued, the stronger the humans became. He called an emergency meeting with the council. High Chancellor In attended via hologram, too important to travel to the front lines himself. Marshal or explain why we are not winning, In demanded. Because the humans are not fighting the war we expected, Or said. They do not form lines and exchange fire. They do not follow the standard rules of engagement. Every battle is different, every attack unpredictable. Our forces cannot adapt fast enough. Then adapt faster, In said. You have superior numbers and superior technology, use them. Our technology is not as superior as we thought, Or said carefully. The humans are reverse engineering our weapons, and their numerical disadvantage does not matter when they refuse to fight battles they cannot win. They choose the time and place of every engagement. Then track them down and force battle, In said. We have tried. Their ships are faster in slip space. They can jump more frequently without damaging their engines. They can calculate jump coordinates faster than our computers. By the time we arrive at their last known position, they are already gone. In's face plates shifted in anger. What you are describing is impossible. We are the Galactic Empire. We do not lose wars against primitives. They are not primitives anymore, Or said. If they ever were, Ambassador tried to warn us, we should have listened. The meeting ended badly. In refused to consider peace negotiations. The Empire had committed its forces and its reputation. To withdraw now would show weakness. So the war continued. More ships, more battles, more defeats that the Council refused to acknowledge as defeats. Watched it all with sad eyes. He had seen this coming. He had tried to warn them. But the Empire's pride was too great to accept that a younger, smaller species could challenge them. On the human side, Brooks knew they were winning battles but not the war. The Empire had virtually unlimited resources. They could replace losses faster than humanity could inflict them. Eventually, the numbers would tell. Unless humanity changed the game entirely. We need to take the fight to them, told his staff. Stop defending and start attacking. Hit their supply lines, raid their colonies. Make them defend everything while we defend only what matters. That is a huge risk, one officer said. We leave Earth vulnerable. Earth is already vulnerable, said. The Empire knows where our is. If they decide to hit it with everything they have, we cannot stop them. But if we make them worry about their own worlds, maybe they will think twice. Sophie Grant spoke up from her position. Sir, that strategy has never worked against the Empire. They are too big to care about raids. True, agreed. Which is why we are not going to raid random targets. We are going to hit them where it hurts most, their pride. He brought up a star chart. One system glowed brighter than others. Prime there, we are going to take the war to them. 1 year into the war, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. High Chancellor In stood at the center platform, but his posture had changed. Gone was the confident swagger. His 4 arms hung at his sides and his face plates showed signs of stress. The situation has become untenable, he announced. The human forces have penetrated 3 sectors into Imperial space. They have destroyed 14 supply stations and captured 6 colonies. I am calling for full species mobilization. Every council member will contribute military forces to end this threat. The chamber erupted in argument. Council Member S was the first to speak. Why should my people die for pride? You started this war. You refused our advice to pursue diplomatic channels. Now you want us to pay the price for your arrogance. The humans threaten all of us, In insisted. If they defeat the Empire, they will not stop. They will continue their expansion. Will they? Asked another council member, unnamed. From what I have seen, the humans fight only when attacked. They have made no moves toward neutral systems. They have not threatened anyone except those who threatened them first. and slammed one fist on his platform. They are primitives who refuse to accept the natural order. The Empire maintains peace across thousands of worlds. These humans would upset that balance. The Empire maintains control, S corrected. That is not the same as peace. Perhaps it is time we questioned whether the natural order you speak of is truly natural or simply convenient for the... The argument continued for hours. Several council members refused to commit forces. Others demanded that in negotiate with humanity. A few even suggested inviting human representatives to the council to discuss terms. While the council argued, Admiral Brooks was implementing his plan. Human forces struck deep into Empire territory, not with massive fleets but with fast strike groups. They hit supply convoys, destroyed fuel depots, and sabotaged communications networks. They were not trying to hold territory. They were trying to make the Empire bleed from 1,000 small cuts. And they were broadcasting while they did it. Every human raid was accompanied by transmissions to local populations. The messages were simple. We are not your enemy. The Empire started this war by attacking our colony without cause. We want peace, but we will defend ourselves. If you are suffering because of this war, blame those who began it. The broadcasts were in every major galactic language. They showed footage of the New Haven attack. They showed ships firing on civilians. They showed Admiral Axe threatening to destroy an entire city. The Empire tried to jam the signals, but human communications technology was surprisingly sophisticated. On conquered Empire worlds, some populations began to question their loyalty. Why were they fighting for an empire that had never asked their opinion? Why were they dying for expansion? Captain Mitchell led one of the most successful raids. She had been promoted to general and given command of ground forces. Her target was a mining world called, or where the Empire used slave labor from 3 conquered species. Forces hit the planet fast and hard. They destroyed the Empire garrison before it could organize a defense. Then, instead of occupying the planet, did something unexpected. She freed the slaves. 12,000 beings from 3 different species stood in the planet's main plaza as addressed them through a translator. You are free, she said. The Empire cannot protect this world anymore. You can stay here and govern yourselves, or we can transport you to neutral systems. The choice is yours. We are not here to conquer. We are here to show the Empire that their time of unopposed rule is over. The freed population stared at her in disbelief. Most conquerors did not free slaves. They just changed masters. Why, asked one of the former slaves, a female named, why would you do this? What do you gain? Smiled, we gain allies. Or at the very least, we gain people who will not fight for the Empire. And maybe we gain something more important. We show the galaxy that humanity stands for something beyond our own interests. Studied for a long moment. The Empire will return. They will punish us for accepting your help. Probably, agreed. Unless they are too busy defending themselves, that is where you can help. Tell others what happened here. Tell them that humans offer freedom while the Empire offers only servitude. Let them decide which side they want to support. The news of or spread across Empire space faster than any official communication. The story grew with each retelling. Humans who could have enslaved a world instead freed it. Humans who could have destroyed infrastructure instead rebuilt it. Humans who could have demanded tribute instead asked nothing. High Chancellor enraged when he heard the news. It is propaganda, manipulation. They buy loyalty with false promises. But Marshall understood better. No, he told in. They are showing the galaxy what the Empire truly is, and the comparison does not favor us. More worlds began to waver in their loyalty. Some refused to send troops. Others openly questioned why they were fighting. A few even made secret contact with human representatives, exploring the possibility of neutrality. Or knew the Empire was fracturing. He approached in with a proposal. We must negotiate, he said. The war is costing us more than territory. We are losing the foundation of imperial rule. Our subject species no longer fear us. Some no longer respect us. If we continue this path, the Empire will collapse from within. Never, In said. The Empire does not negotiate with inferiors. Then the Empire will die, Or said flatly. The humans have shown they cannot be beaten militarily, not quickly and perhaps not at all. Every month this war continues, we grow weaker and they grow stronger. They are learning our tactics, copying our technology, and winning the support of our own subjects. Ambassador joined the conversation. Marshal Orr is correct. I have studied human communications carefully. They are not trying to build an empire of their own. They are trying to dismantle ours, and it is working. In looked between them. You are both cowards. They have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We will not surrender that legacy to primitives who discovered space travel only decades ago. Those primitives, Orr said quietly, are about to knock on your door. At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the Imperial capital. Command staff rushed to their stations. Sensor readings showed impossible data. Human ships had just entered the system. In stared at the tactical display in horror. That is impossible. The defenses should have stopped them. The sensor nets should have given warning. The humans disabled your sensor nets 3 days ago, Orr said. My intelligence officers reported it, but you dismissed their concerns as paranoia. Brooks led the human fleet personally. He had 25 ships, a fraction of the defensive force protecting Prime. But he was not here to conquer the planet. He was here to prove a point. This is Admiral Brooks of the Earth Defense Fleet, he broadcast on all channels. We are here to demonstrate that the Empire can no longer protect even its own. We have disabled your outer defenses. We have bypassed your early warning systems. We are now in orbit around Prime, and we choose not to attack. In scrambled to respond, but continued speaking. We could destroy your orbital stations. We could bombard your cities. We could do to you what Admiral Axe threatened to do to New Haven. But we will not, because humans do not make war on civilians. We make war on those who threaten us. Paused, letting his words sink in across the entire planet. This war began because your empire could not accept that a younger species had the right to exist independently. You thought you could bully us into submission. You were wrong. Now you have a choice. Continue this war and watch your empire crumble as more worlds question your authority, or negotiate a peace that recognizes human sovereignty and leaves both our peoples to coexist without conflict. In finally managed to get his own transmission out. You dare threaten Prime? You will be destroyed for this insult. No threat, said calmly. A demonstration. We are leaving now. Your defense fleet will arrive in approximately 30 minutes. By then we will be gone. Think about what this means, Chancellor. If we can reach we can reach it again, and next time we might not be so restrained. The human fleet jumped to slip space, vanishing as suddenly as they had arrived. The defense fleet arrived to find nothing but embarrassed planetary defenders and a furious Chancellor. The psychological impact was devastating. If humanity could penetrate to the heart of the Empire, nowhere was safe. Every colony, every military installation, every supply line was now a potential target. The Empire would have to defend everything, which meant they could not concentrate forces anywhere. Approached through secret diplomatic channels, they had been working behind the scenes, gathering support from council members who wanted peace. Now he offered to mediate. Your demonstration was effective, said. Several council members are willing to discuss terms, but Instill refuses. Then go around him, suggested. From what I understand of imperial politics, the council can override the chancellor if enough members agree. Theoretically, said, but it has not been done in over 1,000 years. It would be a constitutional crisis. You are already in a crisis, pointed out. The question is whether you want to solve it through continued war or through negotiation. While diplomatic channels slowly opened, General Carter led a ground campaign on the Empire's primary military training world. He had 5,000 troops against a garrison of 20,000. The odds were terrible, as usual. Did not care about odds, he cared about objectives. His objective was not to defeat the garrison. It was to capture the training facility's command center and broadcast a message. His troops moved through the facility with precision. They had trained for urban combat on Earth's most dangerous cities. The military base was structured and predictable by comparison. Forces took the command center in 6 hours with minimal casualties on both sides. Once in control, broadcast to every trainee on the planet. Most were young, learning to fight for the Empire. This is General Carter of the Earth Defense Forces. I am broadcasting from your command center, which we now control. You have been taught that humanity is weak, primitive, inferior. You have been told we would be easy to defeat. You now see the truth. We took your command center in 6 hours. We could have killed every person here. We chose not to. Ask yourselves why the Empire sends you to die in a war they cannot win. Ask yourselves what you are really fighting for. The message was heard by over 50,000 trainees. Many would remember it when they were deployed to the front lines. Some would refuse to fight, others would fight half-heartedly. A few would desert. The empire was crumbling, not from military defeat, but from loss of confidence in its own narrative. It made one final attempt to turn the tide. He ordered scorched earth tactics. If the empire could not hold territory, they would destroy it. Colonies were evacuated and bombed. Industrial facilities were demolished. Civilian infrastructure was reduced to rubble. It backfired spectacularly. The council members who had been wavering in their support now turned decisively against in. Destroying your own territory to deny it to an enemy might be a valid military tactic. But destroying inhabited worlds populated by your own subjects was something else entirely. The vote came suddenly. 17 council members voted to remove in from power and begin peace negotiations. Only 4 voted to continue the war. Despite being the Empire's founding species, were outvoted by representatives of the species they had conquered. The human fleet appeared in the skies over Prime like a gathering storm. 100 ships, some human-built, others captured vessels now crewed by humans who had learned to fly them better than their original owners. Admiral Brooks commanded from his flagship, watching the planet below with mixed feelings. He had never wanted to be here. None of the humans had wanted this war. But the Empire had given them no choice and now stood at the gates of the enemy capital with enough firepower to level cities. "All defense platforms are tracking us," Lieutenant Sophie Grant reported. "They have not opened fire yet." "They are waiting to see what we do," said. "Good, that gives us time." On the planet's surface, High Chancellor In stood in his command center, surrounded by the few loyalists who remained. Most of the council had abandoned him after the vote. Most of the military had stood down, awaiting orders from whoever would lead the Empire next, but In refused to surrender his authority. "Activate the planetary defense weapon," he ordered. His chief engineer hesitated. "Chancellor, that weapon has never been tested at full power. The energy requirements alone could cause cascading failures across the entire power grid." "I did not ask for an analysis, I gave an order." The engineer bowed and began the activation sequence. Deep beneath the Imperial Palace, ancient machinery came to life. The weapon had been built centuries ago as the ultimate deterrent, a device capable of generating an energy pulse that would destroy every ship in orbit simultaneously. It had never been used because its power was too terrible, too indiscriminate. In was past caring about restraint. If he could not rule the Empire, he would rather see it destroyed than handed over to humans. Marshall learned of In's plan and immediately contacted the human fleet. "Admiral Brooks, you must act quickly. The Chancellor has activated a doomsday weapon. If it fires, every ship in orbit will be destroyed, yours and ours alike." His face went hard. "Can you disable it?" "Not without access to the Imperial Palace. In has sealed himself inside. My forces cannot break through in time." "How long do we have?" 20 minutes, perhaps less." Looked at Sophie. "Can we destroy the facility from orbit?" "Not without killing everyone in the palace and probably destroying half the capital city," Sophie said. "The weapon is shielded and buried too deep." Closed his eyes for a moment, thinking. He had come here to end a war, not to slaughter millions of civilians. But if that weapon fired, his entire fleet would be lost. Earth would be defenseless. "I need volunteers for a ground assault," he said. "We are going into that palace." Sophie stood immediately. "I am going, sir." "You are too valuable." "With respect, sir, I helped design our breach tactics. I know those systems better than anyone. You need me." Wanted to argue, but she was right. "Fine, take your best team. You have 18 minutes." Sophie assembled a squad of 20 Marines and launched toward the planet's surface. The defense forces could have shot down their transport, but Orr had ordered them to stand down. There were who wanted this war to end, who wanted In stopped before he destroyed everything. The transport crashed through the palace's shields, taking heavy damage but making it to the ground. Sophie and her team rushed through corridors that had stood for thousands of years, following maps that Orr had transmitted to them. They encountered resistance, palace guards who still followed and opened fire. The humans returned fire, trying to disable rather than kill, but in the chaos of close combat, people died. Human and both fell as the firefight raged through ancient halls. Sophie reached the command center with 12 minutes remaining. The door was sealed with locks that would take too long to bypass. She placed explosive charges and stepped back. The explosion blew the door inward. Sophie's team rushed through the smoke and found themselves facing in and his last defenders. "Stop this," Sophie said, keeping her weapon trained on the Chancellor. "The war is over. The Council has voted for peace. You have lost." "The Empire does not lose to primitives," In said. His hand moved toward a control panel. Sophie fired. The shot hit In's arm, the one reaching for the controls. He screamed and fell back. "I said stop," Sophie repeated. "We do not want to kill you. We want to end this war." But In's chief engineer was still at his station, his hand on the activation lever. "The Chancellor's orders must be obeyed," he said, his voice shaking. "Please," Sophie said, lowering her weapon slightly. "Think about what you are doing. That weapon will not just destroy us. It will kill millions of your own people. The energy backlash will fry every system on the planet. You will be responsible for the deaths of everyone in this city." The engineer looked at the readings on his display. The weapon was charging, building toward critical levels. Sophie was right. The projections showed catastrophic collateral damage, but orders were orders. "I am a soldier," the engineer said. "I follow my duty." "Your duty is to your people, not to one man's pride," Sophie said. "Look around. Your own military has abandoned this command center. Your own council voted for peace. The only ones still here are those too loyal or too afraid to leave. Do not let In's refusal to accept reality kill millions of innocent people." The engineer's hand trembled on the lever. He looked at In, who was clutching his injured arm and glaring hatred at Sophie. "Pull that lever," In commanded. "That is an order." The engineer looked at his displays again. 8 minutes until firing sequence completed. 8 minutes until the end of everything he knew. "I am sorry, Chancellor," he said quietly and pulled his hand away from the controls. "I cannot do this." In screamed in rage and tried to reach the controls himself, but Sophie's team restrained him. Meanwhile, Sophie ran to the engineer's station. "How do we shut this down?" "You cannot shut it down," the engineer said. "The sequence has passed the point of no return. The energy has to go somewhere. It will either fire at the fleet or it will discharge into the planet itself." "What if we redirect it?" Sophie asked. "Aim it somewhere that is not full of ships or people." The engineer looked at her like she was insane. The targeting systems were not designed for that kind of precision. We would be firing blind. "Can you point it at empty space?" "Maybe, but if the calculations are off even slightly, we could hit anything. Civilian transports, space stations, our own satellites." "Better than definitely hitting everything," Sophie said. "Do it." The engineer's fingers flew across his controls. He shut down safeties that had been in place for centuries. He overrode protocols designed to prevent exactly this kind of improvisation. He aimed the most powerful weapon on Prime at a patch of empty space and prayed his math was correct. "Firing in 30 seconds, he said. Sophie contacted. "Sir, we stopped in, but the weapon is still firing. We redirected it toward empty space. You need to clear the fleet out of the targeting zone." Did not hesitate. "All ships, emergency dispersal pattern Delta, move now." The human fleet scattered in every direction. Defense platforms did the same, their crews choosing survival over standing their ground. For a moment, the orbital space around Prime was chaos as hundreds of vessels fled the target zone. Then the weapon fired. A beam of energy erupted from the planet's surface, so bright it was visible from the day side. It lanced through the space where the human fleet had been seconds before and continued into deep space, dissipating after several million kilometers. When it was over, every system on Prime went dark. The power drain was so severe that it took down the entire planetary grid. The capital city was plunged into darkness. Billions of people suddenly found themselves without electricity, without communications, without transportation. But they were alive. In the Imperial Palace, Sophie looked at the engineer. "You saved your people. You chose them over orders. That takes more courage than following commands." The engineer stared at his blank displays, his career and possibly his life now in ruins. But he had made his choice. In was taken into custody by his own guards, who finally accepted that the war was truly over. The former chancellor demanded death. said that history would remember him as a martyr who stood against humanity's aggression. Brooks him that dignity. No, you will live to face trial for the war crimes you committed. You will watch as the empire you tried to destroy rebuilds itself. And history will remember you not as a martyr, but as the fool who started a war his people did not want and could not win. Over the following days, the true cost of the war became clear. Hundreds of thousands dead on both sides. Dozens of worlds damaged. Economies devastated. Families destroyed. And all of it, every death and every loss, because one species refused to accept that another had the right to exist independently. The Galactic Council reconvened, this time with human representatives present. Admiral Brooks and General Mitchell stood before the assembled species, the first humans to ever address the council. "We did not want this war," said. "We wanted only to live in peace on our own worlds, but when the Empire threatened us, we defended ourselves, and we will continue to defend ourselves against any species that threatens us in the future." But, continued, "we do not seek to replace one empire with another. We do not want to conquer or subjugate anyone. What we want is mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and the recognition that every species has the right to determine its own path." Council Member S spoke up. They have been removed from their position of dominance. The Council must decide what comes next. Some have suggested that humanity should take their place. "No," said firmly. "We do not want that responsibility. We are content to be one voice among many, not the voice above all others. The galaxy does not need another empire. It needs cooperation between equals." Ambassador stood to speak. They had spent the war trying to broker peace, and now he finally had the chance to address the outcome. "I warned this Council of Humanity's capabilities," he said. "You all laughed. You dismissed my concerns as the paranoia of a failed explorer. You learned too late that humans are indeed dangerous, but dangerous in ways you did not expect." He turned to look at it. "Humans do not conquer, they endure, they adapt, they remember. But most importantly, they choose mercy when they could choose vengeance. Admiral Brooks had the power to destroy Prime completely. He chose not to. Lieutenant Grant could have killed Chancellor In. She chose to wound instead. At every turn when humanity had the opportunity to match the Empire's cruelty, they chose a different path." Looked back at the Council. That is what makes them truly dangerous, not their weapons or their tactics or their refusal to surrender. What makes them dangerous is that they fight with the ferocity of predators but stop short of becoming monsters. They will destroy your military, cripple your economy, and dismantle your government. But they will not commit genocide. They will not enslave populations. They will not become the evil they fight against. He paused. That kind of restraint, that kind of discipline, is more powerful than any weapon, because it means they can win wars without losing their souls. And that terrifies species like the who have relied on fear and overwhelming force for so long. The Council voted to grant humanity a permanent seat. They also voted to dismantle the imperial power structure, replacing it with a more balanced system where no single species held dominant authority. In was tried for war crimes. The evidence against him was overwhelming. He had ordered attacks on civilian targets. He had attempted to use a doomsday weapon that would have killed billions. He had ignored his own council's vote for peace. The judges debated his sentence for days. Some wanted execution. Others wanted life imprisonment. Finally, they settled on something different. In would live, but he would spend the rest of his life witnessing the reconstruction of what he had tried to destroy. He would be transported to every world damaged by the war, forced to see the recovery efforts, forced to meet the people who had suffered because of his decisions. He would live with the consequences of his choices in a way that death would have spared him. The former chancellor accepted his sentence with bitter silence. He had wanted to be remembered as the leader who stood against humanity. Instead, he would be remembered as the leader who taught the galaxy an important lesson, that pride and arrogance always carry a price. In the years following the war, humans became known not as conquerors but as protectors. They helped rebuild damaged worlds. They shared their technology freely. They mediated disputes between species who had been on opposite sides of the conflict. Slowly, carefully, they built a reputation based on something other than fear. Sophie Grant became an ambassador, working alongside to draft a new galactic charter that emphasized cooperation over domination. The two developed an unlikely friendship, the who had warned everyone and the human who had helped end the war he predicted. Brooks retired from military service but remained active in diplomatic circles. He gave speeches about the true nature of strength, about choosing peace when possible and war only when necessary. Young soldiers, many of whom had heard his broadcast during the war, sought his advice on leadership and strategy. Mitchell returned to New Haven, the colony where the war had started. She oversaw its continued growth and development. The settlement that had refused to surrender now stood as a symbol of human determination and resilience. On a clear evening, and stood at a memorial erected on New Haven. It listed the names of every human and alien who had died in the war. The list was long, too long. Each name represented a life cut short because diplomacy had failed. "I wish they had listened," said quietly. "I wish I could have made them understand before it came to this." "You tried," said. "That is all anyone can do, the rest was up to them." "Do you think it will happen again? Another species, another conflict?" Was silent for a moment. "Probably. The galaxy is a big place with a lot of different people. Conflicts will always arise. But maybe next time people will remember what happened here. They will remember that humans offered peace before we offered war. They will remember that we could have destroyed our enemies but chose mercy instead. And if they do not remember, then we will teach them the same lesson," said. "Humans do not start fights, but we always finish them." Looked up at the stars where human ships now patrolled alongside vessels from a dozen other species. The Galactic Council had survived its first true crisis. The Empire had fallen, but the galaxy had not descended into chaos. Instead, something new was being built, something better. "They laughed at my warning," said. "They mocked the idea that humans could threaten the Empire. Now they understand. Humans do not conquer because they seek power. They survive because they refuse to quit. They fight because they protect what is theirs, and they show mercy because they remember what it is like to suffer." He turned too. "That makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because of what they will do, but because of what they refuse to do even when they have the power." Smiled slightly. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" "Both," said. "Always both." They stood together in the fading light, two veterans of a war that should never have happened, watching the sunset on a world that had refused to surrender. The memorial's eternal flame flickered between them, a reminder of the cost of peace and the price of pride. The galaxy had learned its lesson, the hard way as all important lessons are learned. The Empire had warned everyone to laugh off humanity. They did, and they paid for that mistake with everything they had built. But in the end, what they got was not conquest or subjugation. They got partners, equals, allies who remembered the war but chose to build peace anyway. That was the end the Empire never saw coming. Not destruction, but transformation. Not defeat, but evolution into something better. And in that transformation, humanity had proven what they had always believed about themselves. That they were not defined by their capacity for violence, but by their choice to use it only as a last resort. That they were not dangerous because they were strong, but because they knew when not to use their strength. The stars shone down on New Haven as night fell. Somewhere out there, other species looked at those same stars and remembered. Remembered the war, remembered the peace that followed, and remembered the humans who had changed the galaxy not through conquest, but through the simple refusal to become monsters even when monsters threatened them. The warning had been ignored, the war had been fought, the end had come. But it was not the end anyone expected, and that made all the difference. In refused to accept the vote, he barricaded himself in the Imperial Palace and vowed to fight to the end. That was when the human fleet arrived at Prime again. This time they came with 100 ships, not 25, and this time they did not leave. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. It was not just a military escalation. It was a direct to everything the Empire believed about itself. "That could end humanity," someone said. "Doing nothing will definitely end humanity," replied. "We fight this war on our terms or we lose, and humans do not lose." The end they did not see was already coming.